right, welcome back. And in case you're just joining us, well, you're just in time for the conversation that we want to have this morning, talking about the status of alcoholism and drug and substance abuse in the country. We want to find out what are the hits and the misses, and how do we get to a point where this will no longer be a menace for us as a country. And hopefully by the tail end of this, we should be able to have some sort of a way forward on this crisis. And I have a panel of three that cuts across. They know best how this should be working for us. And it's a panel of two gentlemen and a lady. Let me start by introducing from the far left there, we have Boniface and Diragu. Boniface is the chair and the CEO of Addictions Prevention and Rehabilitation Association of Kenya. I had to be careful saying that. And we have in studio this morning at the center there, Anne Matthew, the vice chair of NACADA. Anne, asante for creating time. And we also have with us Stanley Kamau. Stanley is the founder of Ahadi Kenya Trust. Stanley, shukran for creating time. All right, so before we begin, I just wanted to run you through what the numbers look like so that we know where we are starting from this particular morning. And just recently, NACADA released actually a report of a survey they did to just assess the situation of the country when it comes to alcoholism and drug addiction in the last 5 years. And yeah, there we have it. But all right, we will be running you through the graphics a little bit later, because we want to just help you understand in terms of even the regions, which region is worst hit by what type of, drug or substance. We will be letting you through in that, of course, and just so that will come later. But for now, let's begin our conversation this morning. All right, I'm told we have it now. So this is how the situation is like in terms of alcohol. This is in the young generation, the young people aged between 15 to 24 who are mostly affected. Alcohol there, we have 1 in every 20. Tobacco, 1 in every 31. We have cat or miraa, if you like, 1 in every 28. And cannabis, of course, this was a concern even among the stakeholders, 1 in every 37 among the people aged 15 to 24 are using cannabis. Prescription drugs, 1 in every 1,000, and of course multiple drugs, 1 in every 26. I'll be telling you why cannabis is an issue. But just looking at in terms of the regions, generally in the entire population that was included in this survey, people between 15 to 65, Western region leading with 23.8%, the coastal region 13.9%, and the central region coming in third at 12.8%. Looking at Chang'an, we have Western still leading in terms of the use of Chang'an, 11.4%. The Nyanza region coming in second at 6.3%. And the Rift Valley region, 3.6%. We also have, in terms of the traditional liquor, Western region, apart from leading in the entire alcohol consumption, also leading in traditional liquor consumption, 12.9%. The coastal region, 7.4%. Nyanza there at 2.2%. Remember, these are figures from NACADA, the latest from the report that they just released the other day. In terms of the portable spirits, we're looking at the central region leading in this aspect with 4.1%, the coastal region 3.2%, and Rift Valley 3.1%. Also running you through the legal alcohol in Nairobi, 10.3%, Central 10%, and of course Eastern region 8.4%. Just to give you a picture of how the situation is like across the country. Now, tobacco, very quickly from Central, this is the region leading in tobacco use, 11.9%, Coast 10.8%, and Eastern 10.7% there. And this is not all that was contained in the report. You can actually just find it and look at more in terms of even the differentiation in terms of the male vis-a-vis the female, the age groups, and which in terms of the substances is being abused most in which areas, so that you can have a better understanding. But that is how we look like, lady and gentlemen. There was a bit of concern. I don't know, let me start with you, Boniface. A quick look at those numbers. What strikes you in terms of your analysis of the latest report by NACADA?
Yeah, actually, what alarmed me most from the report was a spike in cannabis use. And in the last 5 years, since the last research, it had moved from 1% to 1.9. That's close to almost doubling the number of people who are using cannabis. And it also showed that the majority of the increase is based from that age of between 15 to 24 years. And that tells us that this is a population between the age of 25 and 35 that will have developed serious problems, because alcoholism and addiction is a progressive illness. It just gets worse over the years. The first 15 to 24 is more of the initiation stages. So it alarmed me quite a bit to see the high number, and it's going to be interesting to follow through with looking at what interventions we can put in place for that. And another thing that also I noticed is the Western Kenya and coast having high alcohol, leading even Central Province in terms of prevalence rates, last time use. And most people would think Nairobi and Central would lead in this, but it seems Western and coast. And I think some people have informed me that traditional liquor has taken a big percentage of that. So it is interesting to see whether traditional liquor over time, whether it is a safer drink to have than the potable spirits that are in Central and Nairobi, which constitute almost 80% of addictions and addiction treatment and alcoholism. You know, there's a big difference between alcohol use and alcoholism. So it's interesting to see whether this species, which is Western Kenya and the coast region from Nazi and for Busa and Chang'an in Western Kenya, whether it will translate to a bigger demand or a crisis in terms of alcoholism. And I think those are the kind of things that we really want to follow through with the next phase of observations. And those are the two key issues that I also am very pleased to look at the trends and to see how downward the percentages are going, but this maybe we'll discuss later. But the alarming thing is that.
Yeah, all right. I'll come to you, Anne, in a bit. But Stanley, also looking at the numbers, I agree with him. Many people thought it's Central and Nairobi. Yeah. To look at Western carrying the heaviest burden of alcohol use, and specifically looking at the numbers that touch on Chang'an and traditional liquor, how do you interpret this?
First of all, what I would say is that my biggest concern is about the age groups that are taking alcohol and such other drug substances. If you look at the trade, that means there's somewhere there's a lapse in how we are bringing up our children. Because I thought that most of the people who are taking these drugs and alcohol should be at the age of between maybe 30 and maybe 40. But if you look at these statistics, it tells you that there's something that needs to be done in our youth. There's something that is lacking among the young people. Either we need to engage them more and put them into maybe more active and to be more engaged in whatever they are doing at this particular age. Because if you look at the other ages who are working, it seems like they are a bit busy doing other things. But this young group between 18 and 24, we actually need to know what we need to do for them, how to engage them. And I've said this before, because the perception that Central Kenya leads in everything has actually been put aside, has been set aside. Because if you asked anybody before they release these statistics, everybody could have told you that Central leads in alcoholism and in drug abuse. But now we have seen that there are more other places, so that the concentration of how to fight these alcoholism and other things can now be spread across the country. I think NACADA has a very big job to spread their wings everywhere in the country. If you look at the traditional liquor, like he has said about Busa and other things, I am not sure when they talk about drug addiction and they talk about alcoholism, I'm not very sure the young people between the age of 18 and 24 are actually so much involved in the traditional liquor, because I expect to see older people involved in the traditional liquor. So I think there's a lapse in how these drugs and how this alcohol is distributed within our country. And the more the elder people consume alcohol, the more the younger people copy them. Because it's, for the young people, it's what they see. Is the monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. So I think we need to look at how we are bringing up our children, especially this young generation. Yeah.
It seems like we're focusing on this young population, and Anne, I'll bring you on now. For you, these are not just numbers. Some people may just look at them as numbers, as statistics, but for you, this is somebody. This was once you, and today you're sitting here after a very long journey of trying to change the narrative and to tell people that it is actually possible to restore what you lost. I want you to tell me a bit more about, from a personal perspective, what these numbers mean to you, even as you run us through a bit more about yourself, Anne.
The numbers are worrying. We saw the other day during the launch that the initiation age now is actually 6. And it's worrying, it's sad. And actually, we are calling out for positive parenting. Parents have to take up their role as parents, not to leave the children to the caregivers and all that. And then again, early exposure to drugs by significant others. For example, if a parent is drinking in front of the children, just like Hadi has said, the child will taste, the child will drink, because the parent is drinking. So early exposure and then genetic predisposition, those are major contributing factors. And we are actually going to roll out age-appropriate programs in schools, because we have to start, these children have to be actually sensitized and taught about the effects of drugs, about life skills, build and rebuild their confidence. Because if you come from a family that has a drinking problem or a drug problem, automatically that family is very dysfunctional. And that is where the child gets lost. And that's where now peer pressure will come in. That's where the child will look for love elsewhere. And I'm telling you, if the child doesn't get love at home, they'll look for it elsewhere. And wherever else they are going to look for is peer pressure. And peer pressure can be very powerful. And peer pressure can be both positive and negative. So if they don't get the love and attention they need in the house, remember we are talking about very young children, they'll look for it elsewhere. It might end up being a very negative peer pressure. Yes.
Now you say that, but a few years, was it 18 years ago?
18 years ago, yes.
Allow me to just take you back a bit, Anne, and we want to understand, because today it's all about solutions. It's all about telling people that it is possible. There could be somebody or a family watching this morning and they're wondering, what do we do with our son? What do we do with our daughter? Where do we move? What do we do? I want you to tell me a bit more about your story, and how is it that today you're sitting here and you understand the impact and even how to solve this problem? Before you got here, who was Anne?
Anne was an alcoholic. Actually, I've been to hell and back. I started drinking when I was 10. I was given my first alcoholic drink by my father. First cigarette by my dad at about the same age. And like Boniface said, addiction is progressive. It caught up with me later when I tried to stop and I couldn't stop. Interfered with my education, lost relationships with my children, with my family members, and I became an outcast. I became a very lonely person among people. And it was very painful. Everybody needs to be loved. Everybody needs to be embraced in one way or the other, whether a child or a grown-up. And actually now my only friends were my drinking buddies. And drugs and crime go together. So that's why I sold nearly everything that I had. You start stealing from yourself. Before you before you steal from relatives, you start by stealing from yourself.
Just to finance that.
Yeah, to finance the disease. Because, yeah, to finance the disease. So you can do anything, pickpocketing and all that. So my younger brother was my partner in crime. Unfortunately, he didn't make it even after going for treatment. He passed on. So like I told you the other day, I've lost 4 family members to alcoholism. And it is painful. It's very, very painful. And that's why I'm very passionate about this campaign, because I would like to save as many lives as possible with proper structures in place, with proper structured treatment programs in place. And again, I want to tell Kenyans that addiction doesn't have to be expensive to be effective. We have support groups that are free. We have the Nakada helpline, 1192. We have drop-in centers where where people with substance abuse disorders can go for counseling, for individual counseling, for group therapy, psychosocial support. Because we have many people like the street families. How do you expect them to pay for treatment? It's pretty expensive. And I think we only have only one Nakada funded treatment facilities, that is Miritini. And I'd like to tell Kenyans that Miritini is not charging female clients. It's free of charge. So if you have a sister, a mother with substance abuse, take them to Miritini.
And there are people who usually blame it on, let's say, because from my little understanding of addiction and the journey, it is a disease that needs to be treated. But before you realize that, there are people who usually blame this person who is sick. Do they know when they are getting into the red zone, or how does it shift from use to addiction?
Like Boniface said, addiction is a progressive disease. It has 5 stages. Yeah. It starts with experimental. That is the first stage, where everybody is experimenting in school. Usually this is the teenage, where they want to experiment. Some of them curiosity-driven, others is rebellion. They want to rebel against the parent who is not at home, an absent parent. They want to rebel against the authority at school, because actually the caregiver was never there. So when they go to school, boarding schools, and there's a teacher telling them, do this, do that, the mother was never there to tell them to do that. They start questioning, who are you to tell me what to do when my mother and my parent never told me what to do? So at times they'll do that because they want to become rebellious. Others want to stand out. Why low self-esteem and lack of self-worth, which was actually not done at home within the family setting. So they lack that. And so to enhance that, the drug, especially alcohol, will make you feel good, will make you feel mellow, will make you feel like they are the Queen of England. So...
She is actually.
So, and the second stage now is the social stage. The social stage actually is for these people, like, for example, before it was just the university students and all that, but now university students, now we find them in the 4th stage. So in the social stage, no warning signs. And so actually even telling somebody about alcohol and drugs that, this one is going to ruin your life, in fact, now you'll be talking to yourself. Because actually not everybody, every addiction starts with use, but not every use leads to addiction. Yeah. So some people are just generally okay with 2 beers, 3 beers. Others now
people say I'm a social drinker.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a social drinker. But when you look at the social drinking, it's taking 15. That is denial. Yeah. So from the second stage, which is the social stage, we go then again to instrumental. Instrumental, this is where the warning starts. The warning signs will start to show. And the first warning sign is blackout. Blackout can be either total blackout or active blackout. Active blackout is where they start saying, gari yangu inajua nyumbani. So the moment you start now saying that your car knows home, and the moment you start forgetting who dropped you home or who you dropped home, that is active blackout. Actually, this is where now self-esteem issues now come in, low self-esteem, lack of self-worth. And actually, it's called the instrumental stage because you start using your drug of choice as an instrument to make you feel better, to give you that false courage to face people, to give you that false courage to talk. And this is where now you start now asking the first question when you're invited to a party, kuna pombe? Or the drug of choice, for example, those people who use marijuana. Kuna ganja, kuna ngwai, so that you take your stock with you. So if there will be no party, there will be no alcohol or any drugs at the party, they will always ask that question. So that means now the drug of choice has started taking a toll on you. And then there's the habitual stage. The habitual stage is where now you cannot survive without alcohol. This is where the withdrawal symptoms are very obvious. The tremors, the palpitations of the heart, the in and out of hospital, the sweating, and withdrawals can be very severe. And at times people have to be hospitalized. Withdrawals can also kill very, very quickly, especially for those people who are taking alcohol. And that is why you find people selling anything.
To just keep them going.
Get that fast drink, drug fix in the morning.
Is it kutoa lock? Did my research. All right, so this is what we'll do. I want us to, and thank you for taking us through that very journey, how it begins. Which stage were you before you discovered that now I need to get out?
I was in compulsive.
Okay.
Compulsive stage is the last stage.
The last stage.
And that this, so we call it the stage of death because this is where I actually became very suicidal. I attempted suicide 3 times because I'd lost everything, practically everything. I'd lost myself, I'd lost the family, I'd lost relationship with my children, with myself, with God. I didn't measure up to my own expectations, family expectations, community expectations, and this is why now you feel that it's time to end your life.
It's time.
So actually, and I tell people, and people, you know, you would ask, and people would be very cross on me, why do you want to commit suicide? Or why are you trying this? Actually, it is not Ann Matthew who was actually killing Ann Matthew. It was the authentic Ann Matthew trying to kill the addicted Ann Matthew. Because the authentic Ann Matthew was very tired, very, very tired of the addicted Ann Matthew. So the authentic Ann Matthew was getting rid of the, was trying to get rid of the addicted Ann Matthew. And then in the process, you die.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
That's how it happens.
And many, I know you're watching, maybe you could relate to this story, or you know someone who could relate to this story. Keep It Citizen TV will be picking it up. Of course, even talking about initiatives like Muranga the other day, an interesting activity that took place just to be able to address this crisis in that particular region. We'll be discussing that and much more when we come back from this break. Keep it favorite.